What do you think is the most legitimate, verifiable evidence that we have of aliens? Like, I know there's all these crazy things people find, and you can find this hieroglyphic of a hydrogen bomb, or see all these things, and you can make all these assumptions about it, or all these connections to it. But what do you think is like the most concrete evidence of this stuff, or the most concrete like encounter or sighting or whatever it is?
Well, here's the thing. No matter, it's funny if you talk about certain events. People go, well, if I could just see what Bigfoot looks like, and then you get a picture like, well, that's not really him. That's not. Oh no, I think you're going to have a problem. I think even if tomorrow, if aliens landed and we're shaking everybody's hand and going, okay, we're here, there'd still be people going, nah, that's not real. That's not real. That's all. So I don't think there's any one event. I think it's more when Eric von Daniken came out and started saying what he was saying, the scientific community was looking at him like, with pseudoscience, you're an idiot. But for whatever reason, the rest of the planet started to get it. They started to see the same things that he was seeing. I mean, does God really fly around on a carpet? Somebody was flying around on a carpet. They wouldn't have said
Aladdin.
that. I mean, yeah. So these things that are flying and there's wars going on and these things that are happening have to be looked at more than just like, well, it was just somebody's great imagination. Well, no, that's your opinion. But when you look at each of the cultures that are out there, they all seem to have something unique about what they do, but it's also shared. So again, when you start looking at the stars and we start talking about astrology and we start talking about different times of the year, they all seem to have this same thing in common. Well, they all couldn't be so good with the stars and planets. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever tried to track like Venus, but it's crazy because it moves so fast across the sky. Even in the summertime, when we go from summertime to wintertime, the sun moves real quick. And so it moves, actually, the sun moves farther north. And it does it like in a couple of weeks because as the Earth starts to rotate around. But how would you know that back then? I mean, where do these people get their knowledge to even ask that question?
Yeah, what do they say about for them to actually, for the Egyptians or the Mayans or whoever it was that were able to account for the is it what's called the wobble? It's called the equinox.
The equinox of the wobble, correct?
I can't remember exactly, but it was like you would need to take measurements for like over 100 years or something like that to be able to account for the wobble of the Earth.
To pick up
it
on
was
it.
more than that. It was maybe like 500 years or something.
It could have been. Yeah, it could have been some crazy number because again, now the wobble happens yearly. That's what gives us our seasons.
Right.
As it kind of, if the planet's like this and it kind of rocks this way, north now has become farther down, and you start to work yourself up, and it becomes a whole different.
Yeah, it's the equinox.
I mean, you can really tell by the way the light changes too when it starts to shift, because the way the light hits in the summer definitely hits different than in the winter.
For sure. I mean, my grass
Faded
notices,
and
and I can see it in the yard. I've actually got some things marked, like where the first day of winter is and where the first day of summer is.
So you can track it by the shadows.
And that's exactly right. And I just put rocks by it, and of course it's my own little thing that I've done there. But so going back and look at what they've done, you're like, okay, I get that. But, of course, the question comes up, where do these cultures go? Where did the Egyptians go? Where did the Mayans go? They got mixed up with the Spanish, and the Spanish had diseases, and they died because that's just too convenient.
Mike, was there a time...
Too convenient.
Was there a time in your life before, was there a time or, some sort of event that happened where you just started paying attention to the sky? Or was it a time you just never... Because I can remember... a time up until recently, I never pay attention or look at the sky ever during the day.
Sure.
How many people actually take a couple minutes of the day to pay attention to what's going on in the sky?
Don't.
You're too busy on your phone. You're driving. You're looking at your laptop. You're working on your computer. Whatever you're doing, talking to somebody. Very, very. I bet you less than 1% of people on the planet spend more than 5 minutes a day looking at paying attention to what's going on in the sky.
Sure.
Unless you see an airplane or a helicopter or something that catches your attention.
You got to slow down and let the light in, man.
Yeah.
Look up.
Well, I think, too, that some people, what I've noticed with some people is that they're more aware of things than others. And it's almost a natural thing. Again, kind of for instance, I'm with a bunch of guys, we're traveling, we're doing a big backpack trip through the mountains. I happen to see a deer with a fawn, and they're kind of jumping around. And she's playing with this little thing, and I didn't get a chance to stop and see the other guys yet so they could even see it. So as I turned around to talk to them, 2 of the other guys who were in the group had seen the same thing, but the other 4 were completely oblivious to it.
Mm-hmm.
So some people just have that natural ability, I think, to be more interested in what's going on. Stargazing. So stargazing starts out as stargazing, and all of a sudden one night you see something like, well, what is that? Why is it doing that? So that's where, I mean, for me as a Boy Scout, that's what kind of started for me.
Right.
We're out camping one night. We're all kind of having a fun time, and we see a what looked like a meteorite, and it probably was.
Yeah.
But I was like, wow, dude, I can see that with my eyes. Being a young guy, you don't realize that. And so you start looking at additional things. And even in our last podcast, we talked about, I want to say it was 94. I'm coming back from Tampa. It's 4:00 in the afternoon. And there's this great big gray football shaped thing at the top of that tower.
Right.
I sent you that picture of where the building was next to it.
You talked about that in the last podcast,
Yep.
and there was other people coming in the comments saying they saw the same thing.
Really?
Yes.
See? So, dude, when I saw that at that time, I'm like, dude, it's 4:00 in the afternoon. It's rush hour traffic. And I'm looking at this thing like, nobody else is seeing that? So I'm thinking, well, okay, it's a blimp. And it got off and it's got caught at the top of the tower.
Yeah, yeah.
The weird thing was that the line, there was a line that went from this whatever it was to the top of the tower, but there was slack in it. It wasn't pulled tight. So I know this is a 500-foot tower. I know that 500 feet above the ground, that wind is whipping pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So that thing would have been moving, but it didn't move at all. And you're so like, well, if nobody else is paying attention to it, it can't be really anything then.
Right.
But I couldn't get that thing off of my mind. And so at the time, there was nothing there to say, wow, what was as big as that building? They built this 10-story building almost right next to the tower when you're coming across Howard Franklin Bridge so you can see it. And I'm like, it was as big as that building. It literally was as big as that building. And so I, probably 8 or 9 months after the fact, I actually went to this facility. It's still there. There's a huge fence around it. You can't get into the building. You're not going to walk into it. There's a security. So when I rang the buzzer, and the guy's like, hey, all deliveries go around back. I'm like, listen, I don't have a delivery. I got a question for you, though. And he's like, yeah, what is it? And I said, hey, about 9 months ago, I saw something at the top of your tower that was either caught on the tower, and I'm just trying to confirm it was there. And the first thing he said to me was, sir, I want you to get off the property. I'm like, excuse me? I'm just asking us, get away. And so he said, get away from the fence.
Yeah.
And then he wouldn't talk to me anymore. There was no more questioning coming up.
Yeah.
So, again, was that real? It was something. If people chimed in, so they must have seen it also.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You can get away with so much shit in the air because no one's paying attention. Nobody's staring at the sky.
4 o'clock in
ever.
the afternoon, not a thing. Not a thing.
Doesn't even have to be that high. It could probably just be like 10 feet in the air and people wouldn't see it.
Dude, like I said, this was 500
Yeah,
feet.
right.
This was 500 feet. This wasn't like, like even I watched the space shuttle flew by here the other night.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool. It was in a great location. Watched the whole thing go by. If you didn't know it was a space shuttle, you'd have thought it was a plane. There was no flashing lights. It was just a straight line, but it was a bright colored light. And this thing is moving at 25,000 miles an hour.
Damn.
But it looked like a plane that was moving at 400 or 500 miles an hour.
Is that how fast the rockets go? 25?
So, well, the space shuttle does.
The space shuttle goes
The space
25,000
miles an hour.
God damn.
Well, see, that's why when they have
That's
like
fast.
a part, all this space debris up there floating around, that it's moving also at 25. It'll punch a hole.
Oh, yeah.
Right through the side of this thing. So they're always constantly looking at space junk and trying to figure out. But again, watching this thing go through the air, I mean, if you didn't know it was coming through that night, you just thought it was a plane. I know that people was like, what are you doing? I'm watching the space shuttle fly over. Sure you are. Whatever. Go enjoy your beer.
Yeah.
Where were you at?
I was over in Tampa. I was doing some. I had a lady over there I was working for, and it was 10 o'clock at night. It's in a great area. It's in a very, very well-to-do neighborhood. It's at the end of the road, right over the bay. I've got a perfect view. I can see everywhere. I can see over to McDill, and I can see over down to Howard Franklin.
Nice.
Right at the point. Matter of fact, there's no houses there. That lot that's at the end of this piece of property is going for $10 million. So just to give you an idea of the kind of the area that I'm in.
Yeah.
But nice and dark. I mean, I can see everything out there, and just a really, really cool event
That's super cool
to watch.
You watched it with like binoculars?
No,
or
just your eyes, man. Just your
Okay.
eyes. Didn't have any problem watching it whatsoever.
That's cool.
So those little type of events, they start to happen. And then, my son had a couple things happen. He's like, dude, I just saw something so weird tonight. And this was in our neighborhood. Now, if you look at this area we live in here,
Yeah, I have a problem with this area because there's not enough UFOs in this area. There's
Yeah.
If you look at the map, Aiden, if you can find the map of UFO sightings in the United States in the past 10 years, it shows you all of the reports. 'Cause people report UFO sightings every day.
Absolutely.
And this is like one of the dead zones, the west coast of Florida.
You think there might be more activity with the military base because aren't they usually?
Well, it's funny you said that because
interested in
I actually watched. They were doing special operations. Will run certain vehicles at certain times of the year. So these Ospreys they have that the Marines use for special operations. They were flying them around one weekend, and I knew that's what they were. So I kind of went outside to go watch them. And this is what I sent to MUFON. As I'm watching this, and I had my phone out, and I'm kind of zeroing in on this one Osprey, and it's probably 25 or 30 miles away. And I wasn't trying to videotape this, but something shoots out of the side.
I like to have the aliens
Zoom
from South
out.
Park.
That works.
Crucial.
See, look at that, man.
Florida's looking a little
Zo-
hot.
Zoom
looking
in on
hot.
zoom in on Florida. Actually,
Florida's looking hot.
I thought they were all over on like the
Oh,
Cocoa
we're
Beach.
looking real hot right
Yeah.
now.
Holy shit, those are all you, Mike.
That's exactly what it is.
Every
Mike. Dude, there's something in the air every single night.
Actually, this
Okay,
area is looking pretty
I'm
hot.
way off. I thought what I saw there was like none in this area. And all the ones that I saw in Florida were like centered around the Cocoa Beach area.
This one's definitely legit. Because
Well, listen
of the
to
picture over there.
People are more aware today. So
Yeah.
they're a lot more apt to report something today than they were 10 years ago. Everybody has a phone now, so they can pull it out and record that event as well, whatever it is.
Oh, look, the Northeast is real hot.
I mean, so yeah, could all those people be wrong?